Commander Ixelva stepped off her ship, her tall, armored form casting a long shadow across the Galactic Council's Grand Hall. The chamber, a massive dome of glass and metal, buzzed with the sounds of hundreds of alien delegates from different worlds. Some were large, others small, some with multiple limbs, others with no eyes at all. The air smelled of strange spices, metal, and the faint scent of electricity from the hovering drones that recorded the meeting. But Selva paid little attention to these details. She had only one thought in her mind: the humans. She had heard about them before. Small, fragile creatures from a tiny blue planet called Earth. The other Xilari warriors often laughed about them. No claws, no fangs, no natural armor. Their bones were weak, their muscles unimpressive, and they lived for only a short time compared to most species in the galaxy. They were not warriors. They were not a threat. They were nothing. As she walked through the chamber, she noticed the humans sitting at their assigned seats. They looked so tiny compared to the massive Brakthar warlords, the towering Drunvian diplomats, and, of course, the mighty Xilari soldiers like herself. She smirked. Is this what the galaxy is so curious about? A tall insectoid ambassador, clicking its mandibles together, greeted her. "Ah, Commander Ixelva. Welcome. You are just in time. The human delegation is about to make their address." Zelva folded her arms, her sharp golden eyes fixed on the human representative. "Good," she said, her deep voice carrying a note of amusement. "I would love to see what these tiny beings have to say." The human ambassador, a man named Carson, stepped onto the central platform. He was not large, not imposing. His short brown hair was neatly combed, and he wore a simple navy blue suit, unlike the heavy armors or grand robes of other species. He adjusted his tie and looked around the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice calm but steady, "we appreciate this opportunity to stand before you today." Zelva barely listened. Instead, she leaned toward a Brakthar warlord sitting beside her. "Look at him," she muttered, loud enough for others to hear. "So small, so weak. It is a wonder his kind has even survived." The Brakthar, a hulking beast covered in dark blue scales, let out a low growl of agreement. Humans are an odd species. They have no natural weapons, yet they act as if they belong here among warriors. Some of the nearby delegates chuckled. Even the insectoid ambassador twitched its antennae in amusement. But Carson did not react. If he heard the whispers, he ignored them. Instead, he continued speaking, his voice steady. "We understand that humanity is still new to the galactic stage," he said. "We have no great fleets like the Xilari. We do not have the brute strength of the Brakthar. But we do have something unique, something that has carried us through countless struggles, from the moment we first picked up a stone to fight off predators, to when we launched ourselves into the stars." Zelva smirked. What could these weaklings possibly have? Carson looked directly at her, as if sensing her thoughts. His expression did not change. "We have resilience," he said simply, "and we have the ability to adapt. That is why we are here today." The hall was silent for a moment. Some aliens nodded thoughtfully, others remained unimpressed. Zelva, however, laughed. "Resilience," she repeated, her voice filled with amusement. "Adapting. These are the words of prey, not warriors." She stood up, towering over Carson. "Tell me, human, do you truly believe that your kind can stand against the might of species who have been fighting wars long before your ancestors even knew how to build fire?" Carson did not flinch. He simply smiled, a small, knowing smile. "Commander," he said, "I believe actions speak louder than words. Would you like to see what a true human warrior looks like?" The room murmured with interest. Even the Brakthar beside Selva tilted his head. It was rare to see a human challenge someone like a Xilari, let alone one of their greatest commanders. Selva raised an eyebrow. "A human warrior?" she asked, crossing her arms again. "Now this I have to see." Carson nodded. "Then meet me in the combat arena tomorrow. I promise, you will not be disappointed." The room was alive with whispers. The Xelari were one of the most feared warrior races in the galaxy. What could a human possibly do against them? Zelva grinned. This would be entertaining. She had fought countless battles, conquered entire worlds. A human would be no different. "Very well," she said, her golden eyes gleaming with anticipation. "I accept your challenge. Let us see what these tiny humans are truly made of." As she turned and walked away, she did not notice Carson's smirk widening. "Oh, you have no idea what's coming, Commander." The Galactic Council's combat arena was nothing short of breathtaking. It was a vast, circular space with energy barriers lining the edges, ensuring that no attack would escape into the audience. The floor was made of reinforced metal, strong enough to withstand even the heaviest warriors. Floating drones hovered above, ready to capture every moment of the upcoming duel. The news of the fight had spread fast. The stands were now filled with delegates from dozens of alien races, all eager to see how this strange event would unfold. Some were here out of curiosity, others to witness what they believed would be a humiliating defeat for humanity. Commander Xelva stood at the center of the arena, her imposing figure a symbol of Xelari strength. She wore her traditional warrior armor, black with streaks of red, built to absorb heavy impacts. Her golden eyes gleamed with confidence as she stretched her powerful arms, preparing for battle. She had fought in countless wars, faced creatures that could crush steel with their bare hands, and stood victorious against entire armies. A human, a tiny human. This would be nothing more than an amusing exercise. Ambassador Carson stood on the opposite side of the arena, hands in his pockets, as calm as ever. He glanced toward the entrance tunnel and nodded. "It's time," he said. Footsteps echoed through the tunnel, slow and steady. The arena grew silent as everyone turned their eyes toward the approaching warrior. Then he stepped into the light. A tall human, dressed in a sleek black combat suit, walked toward the center of the arena. His name was Captain Darius Kane, a decorated super soldier from Earth's elite forces. His dark hair was short, his sharp blue eyes focused and unreadable. Every step he took was controlled, deliberate, as if he was already analyzing the battlefield, already calculating every possible move. He wasn't the biggest being in the arena. Compared to Xelva, he was shorter, leaner. He had no claws, no natural armor, no glowing energy fields around him. But somehow, the air in the arena changed the moment he arrived. Xelva frowned. She had expected nervousness, maybe even a bit of fear. But Kane's face was blank. No arrogance, no doubt, just cold, calculating focus. Carson gave a small smile. "Commander Xelva, meet Captain Darius Kane, one of humanity's finest warriors." Xelva tilted her head, studying him. "This is your champion?" she asked, voice filled with amusement. Kane said nothing. He simply stood there, his gaze locked onto hers. Ambassador Carson chuckled. "I'll let his actions speak for themselves." The arena's announcer, an AI voice projected from hidden speakers, spoke up. "Combatants, prepare for battle. The match will continue until one side is unable to fight or surrenders. Begin on my mark." Xelva rolled her shoulders. "I won't break him too quickly," she said with a smirk. Kane remained silent. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. Fight. Xelva moved first. In a single, explosive motion, she launched herself forward, her powerful legs propelling her like a missile. She was fast, very fast. Most warriors couldn't react in time when Xelari charged. The fight should have been over in an instant. But it wasn't. Kane sidestepped at the last possible moment, his movement so precise it was almost inhuman. Xelva's fist hit nothing but air, and before she could recover, she felt something strike the side of her knee. It wasn't a powerful hit, but it was perfectly placed. A sharp pain shot through her leg as she stumbled forward. She growled and spun around, her golden eyes narrowing. Lucky move. She lunged again, this time swinging a powerful fist toward Kane's head. If the hit connected, it would end the fight immediately. But it didn't. Kane ducked, stepping to the side with effortless grace. His movements weren't just fast. They were controlled, every motion efficient, and without wasted energy. Zelva snarled in frustration. Then Kane attacked. His fist struck her side, a quick, precise hit that sent a shock through her body. Before she could react, he moved again, landing another strike to her ribs, then a sharp kick to the back of her knee. She staggered. She was stronger, she was larger, but he was faster. More than that, he was smarter. The crowd was silent now. The aliens who had expected a quick human defeat were leaning forward in their seats, their eyes wide. Kane didn't gloat. He didn't speak. He simply stood there, watching her, his expression unreadable. Zelva took a deep breath, steadying herself. "All right, human, you have my attention." She adjusted her stance. No more reckless charges. She would fight seriously now. But as she looked into Kane's cold, calculating eyes, she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling growing in her chest. For the first time in her life, Commander Zelva wondered if she was the one who had made a mistake. A hush fell over the Galactic Council's combat arena. Thousands of alien spectators leaned forward in their seats, their eyes locked onto the fight below. What had started as a simple challenge was turning into something much more. Commander Zelva had expected an easy victory. She had believed that this human, small, fragile, and lacking any natural weapons, would fall within moments. Instead, she found herself facing something entirely different. Captain Darius Kane stood before her, his sharp blue eyes calm and unreadable. He had barely broken a sweat, while she, a warrior of the mighty Xilari Dominion, had already felt his attacks. They weren't powerful in the way she was used to, but they were precise, efficient, and designed to wear her down. Zelva clenched her fists. She was done underestimating him. This time, she would fight seriously. She adjusted her stance, spreading her feet slightly wider, lowering her center of gravity. Instead of rushing him like before, she moved carefully, circling him. She watched him, searching for an opening. But Kane simply stood there, relaxed but alert. He wasn't making a move. The silence was unsettling. "He's testing me," Zelva realized. "He's waiting for me to make a mistake." A growl rumbled in her chest. "Fine. Let's see if you can handle this, human." With controlled force, she moved. Not a reckless charge this time, but a measured step forward. She threw a feint, a quick jab with her left fist, then followed with a powerful kick aimed at his midsection. Most warriors would react to the punch and leave themselves open to the real attack. Kane wasn't like most warriors. The moment Zelva's foot left the ground, Kane moved. He didn't dodge backward. He stepped toward her, inside her reach. Before she could land the kick, his arm shot forward, his palm striking the side of her knee. Pain flared up her leg. Her balance wavered. In a blur, Kane twisted his body and drove his elbow into her ribs. The impact wasn't enough to break anything, but it sent a sharp jolt through her body. She stumbled back, eyes wide. What kind of fighting style is this? It wasn't brute strength. It wasn't flashy. It was exact. Every move he made had a purpose. Every attack was placed exactly where it would hurt the most. Zelva exhaled sharply. "You fight like a predator," she muttered. Kane's face remained unreadable. Observation is key. Zelva wiped her mouth, feeling a new kind of excitement building inside her. She had fought many opponents, some stronger, some faster, but never one who fought with such intelligence. Good. This was getting interesting. She took a deep breath, then moved again. This time, she didn't rely on brute force. She adjusted, shifting her attacks, testing his reactions. A quick strike to his side, dodged. A sweeping leg kick, blocked. A sudden feint, followed by a spinning elbow. Kane barely evaded, tilting his head at the last second. She was learning his movements. But so was he. Each time she tried something new, he reacted faster. He wasn't just dodging randomly, he was adapting. For the first time in years, Selva felt something deep in her chest. Not frustration, not anger. Thrill. She grinned. "You're better than I thought." Kane finally spoke. "You talk too much." Zelva laughed. A deep, genuine laugh. "Oh, I like this human." But she wasn't done yet. She dropped into a lower stance and lunged forward, throwing a powerful hook at his head. Kane sidestepped. But this time, she was ready. She twisted with emotion and drove her knee up toward his ribs. It was a perfectly executed counterattack. Fast, unexpected, and brutal. Kane barely blocked in time. Her knee slammed into his forearm, forcing him backward. For the first time, he stumbled slightly. A ripple of murmurs ran through the crowd. Zelva smirked. "Got you." Kane exhaled, adjusting his stance. He flexed his arm once, testing the impact. Then he looked at her, and he smiled. It was the first real expression he had shown since the fight started. But it wasn't a smile of amusement. It was the smile of a hunter. Zelva felt something cold creep up her spine. "Wait, did I just?" Before she could finish the thought, Kane moved. Faster than before. Faster than any human should be able to. He closed the distance in a heartbeat. His fist slammed into her stomach. Not a wild punch, but a perfectly placed strike to the solar plexus. Zelva gasped, her breath vanishing instantly. She barely had time to process the hit before Kane spun, sweeping her legs out from under her. She fell hard onto her back, the impact rattling through her bones. The crowd gasped. Zelva's vision blurred for a moment. Her chest burned as she struggled to suck in air. Before she could rise, Kane was there. His knee pressed lightly against her chest, his hand at her throat. Not squeezing, not harming, but making it clear. He had won. The arena was silent. Kane met her gaze, his expression calm but firm. "Still think we're weak?" Zelva stared up at him. And then, to the shock of everyone watching, she laughed. A deep, booming laugh that echoed through the entire chamber. "By the stars," she said, still breathless. "I was wrong about you humans." Kane tilted his head slightly, then stood, offering her a hand. For a long moment, she stared at it. Then she clasped his wrist in a warrior's grip and let him pull her up. As she looked around at the stunned crowd, she smiled. Tiny? No, humans are giants where it matters. The arena was still silent. Thousands of aliens sat in stunned disbelief, their eyes locked onto the two figures standing at the center of the combat floor. Commander Exelva, one of the mightiest warriors of the Celari Dominion, had been defeated. By a human. The realization spread through the crowd like wildfire. The whispers of doubt and amusement from earlier had turned into quiet awe. They had come expecting to see a tiny, fragile species get crushed. Instead, they had witnessed something they never imagined. Humanity was dangerous. Zelva stood tall, shaking off the soreness in her limbs. She had fought many warriors in her lifetime, but none like Captain Darius Kane. His speed, precision, and intelligence in battle were unlike anything she had ever faced. She had underestimated him. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel anger at her defeat. She felt respect. Kane remained calm, standing a few steps away, his breathing steady. He showed no arrogance, no smugness. He had won, but he wasn't celebrating. Zelva chuckled, breaking the silence. "You're not what I expected, human." Kane's sharp blue eyes met hers. "I hear that a lot." She grinned, shaking her head. "I thought your kind were weak. I thought your species had no place among warriors. But now, I see the truth." She took a step closer, standing at full height, towering over him. Yet, Kane did not flinch. "You are not weak," she said, her golden eyes gleaming with something new. Admiration. "You are efficient. You are tactical. You fight with your mind just as much as your body." That is the mark of a true warrior. Cain gave a small nod. You're not bad yourself. Zelva let out a booming laugh. Not bad. Ha, I think that's the first compliment I've ever received from a human. The crowd was still stunned, unsure how to react. The Xilari were a proud species, and their commander had just been defeated. But instead of anger, Zelva was smiling. Then, to everyone's shock, she stepped forward and raised Cain's arm high into the air, a gesture of honor. Gasps rippled through the audience. This was something no one had expected. Zelva turned to face the stands. Her voice rang out, strong and unshaken. Let it be known throughout the galaxy, humans are not to be underestimated. For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, a few aliens began to clap. Others joined in. The sound grew louder, spreading through the arena. Soon, thousands of beings were cheering. The same crowd that had mocked humanity before was now applauding them. Cain remained as calm as ever, but Ambassador Carson, standing at the edge of the combat floor, had a knowing smile. This moment, this was what he had been waiting for. Humanity had just proven itself to the galaxy. After the battle, after the match, Zelva led Cain and Carson to a private chamber within the arena. It was a warrior's resting hall, filled with ancient Xilari banners and battle trophies from past victories. Zelva poured herself a drink, a deep blue liquid from a heavy metal flask. She took a large gulp, then offered the flask to Cain. He took it, inspecting the drink. Poison? He asked, his tone flat. Zelva laughed. Only if you're weak. Cain took a sip. The liquid burned as it went down, but he barely reacted. He simply handed the flask back. Zelva raised an eyebrow. Emph. Impressive. Carson chuckled. Captain Cain is full of surprises. Zelva leaned forward, resting her massive arms on the table. I've fought many warriors in my lifetime. Most are predictable. Strong, but reckless. Fast, but fragile. But you, Cain. She pointed at him. You fight like a predator. Cain remained silent. Zelva smirked. And predators survive in this galaxy. She took another drink, then leaned back. The Xilari Dominion does not offer respect easily, but you have earned mine. And with my respect comes an offer. Carson's eyes narrowed. What kind of offer? Zelva grinned. An alliance. Carson sat up straighter. You're serious. I am. Zelva crossed her arms. The Xilari are warriors. We respect strength. And humanity has proven itself today. We may have seen you as weak before, but now, she chuckled. Now I see potential. Cain and Carson exchanged a glance. Carson leaned forward. You realize this changes everything. Zelva's grin widened. Yes, and that is why I am making the offer. She looked directly at Cain. Humanity is young. You are still new to the galactic stage. But today, you showed what your kind is capable of. I believe that together, our people can become something unstoppable. Carson tapped his fingers on the table. This is big. A military alliance between humanity and the Xilari Dominion. Zelva nodded. Our enemies will fear it. Our allies will rethink their positions. And you, humans, will no longer be seen as small or weak. Cain remained silent for a moment, considering her words. Then, finally, he spoke. We don't fight for dominance, he said. We fight for survival. Zelva's golden eyes gleamed. Then let us survive together. Carson exhaled, shaking his head with a smile. Well, I didn't expect this when I woke up today. Zelva laughed. Neither did I. Human, but fate works in strange ways. She raised her flask. To the future. Cain and Carson exchanged a glance. Then, with a small nod, they lifted their own glasses. To the future. And with that, the first steps of a new alliance were made. A future where humanity was no longer mocked. A future where humanity was respected. The news of Commander Xelva's defeat spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Some species refused to believe it. A human defeating a Xelari warrior in combat. Impossible. Others, however, saw the truth. The video of the fight was shared across countless star systems. Every government, every military, every ruler watched as Captain Darius Kane stood victorious over one of the strongest warriors in the known universe. Some laughed in disbelief. Others took notice, and a few began to worry. A meeting in the shadows, on a distant world, in a darkened chamber. A group of powerful alien leaders sat around a glowing table. They were representatives of the Xeric Empire, the Vakari clans, and the Breltec Syndicate, three of the most dominant factions in the galaxy. Together, they controlled entire sectors, ruling with strength and fear. For centuries, they had ignored humanity. The tiny species had been dismissed as insignificant, a race of soft-bodied creatures from a primitive world. But now, humanity had proven they were dangerous. Auxiliary Commander had acknowledged them as equals. Worse, rumors of an alliance between the Auxiliary Dominion and the Terran Federation were spreading. If that alliance became real, it would shift the balance of power. The Xeric Grand Chancellor, a towering insectoid with gleaming red eyes, clicked his mandibles in frustration. This cannot be allowed. The Vakari warlord, a reptilian with scurred scales, grunted. Agreed. The humans must be put back in their place. The Breltec Syndicate's leader, a sleek, feline-like creature, flicked her tail. They think they are strong now, but strength can be broken. The three rulers stared at the glowing hologram of Earth spinning slowly before them. One thing was clear. Humanity had to be stopped before it was too late. Back on Earth, Captain Darius Kane stood in a high-security meeting room deep within Terran Federation headquarters. The room was filled with high-ranking officers, diplomats, and military strategists. Ambassador Carson stood beside him, addressing the gathered leaders. The Auxiliary Dominion has extended a hand of friendship. This is an opportunity we cannot ignore. Admiral Henshaw, an older man with a sharp gaze, leaned forward. And you trust them? Kane spoke for the first time. I trust Xelva. She respects strength. She understands that humanity is not prey. General Vasquez crossed his arms. Respect is one thing. Loyalty is another. What happens when the Dominion changes its mind? Carson sighed. That's the risk of diplomacy. But the bigger risk is standing alone while the rest of the galaxy sees us as easy targets. The room fell into silence. They all knew the truth. Humanity was still young. Compared to the great empires of the stars, they were small, but they would not remain small forever. Admiral Henshaw exhaled. Then we prepare. Kane raised an eyebrow. For war. For survival. The Admiral's expression was grim. Mark my words, Captain. Someone, somewhere, is already planning to test us. An unseen threat. They didn't have to wait long. A few days later, a distress signal echoed across the void. A Terran colony, one of the newest settlements on the edge of human space, had gone silent. No messages, no signals, no life signs. Gone. The Terran fleet immediately sent a scouting vessel, the TSS Sentinel, to investigate. When they arrived, what they found chilled them to the core. The colony was destroyed, buildings reduced to rubble, streets burned, ships shattered in orbit, and the people, missing, not killed, not left as bodies, simply gone. Kane stood aboard the Sentinel's bridge, staring at the destruction through the viewport. His jaw tightened. No normal raid left no bodies. This was something else. Something worse. Ambassador Carson's voice crackled through the comms. We just received a message from the Auxiliary Dominion. Kane turned. What did it say? Carson's expression was grim. The Xeric Empire, the Vakari clans, and the Breltec Syndicate have formed a secret alliance. He swallowed. and they've declared humanity a threat to galactic stability. Kane exhaled slowly. So it begins. Carson nodded. Yes, and they've made their first move. Kane clenched his fists. Then we'll make ours. He turned to the crew. Set course for the nearest Scifi outpost. If we're going to war, we'll need allies. The ship's engines roared to life. The storm was coming, and humanity was ready. The TSS Sentinel roared through space, its engines burning hot as it sped toward the nearest Scifi outpost. Captain Darius Kane stood at the command deck, his face set in a grim expression. The Terran colony had been wiped out. No bodies, no survivors, only destruction. And now, three of the most powerful factions in the galaxy, the Zyric Empire, the Vakari clans, and the Breltec Syndicate, had secretly allied against humanity. This was no longer just about proving humanity's strength. This was about survival. The meeting with Selva. As the Sentinel approached the Scifi outpost, Kane and Ambassador Carson prepared for the meeting with Commander Selva. The Scifi had promised an alliance, but now, with war on the horizon, Kane needed to know if that promise would hold. The ship landed in a vast Scifi battle station, its towering metal walls glowing with golden energy. As Kane and Carson stepped onto the platform, Zelvet was already waiting for them. The massive warrior crossed her arms. I heard about the attack. Her golden eyes narrowed. You were right, Kane. Someone has made their move. Kane nodded. Now it's time for us to make ours. Carson stepped forward. Zelva, we need to know, will the Scifi stand with us? For a moment, there was silence. Then Selva grinned. You think I would abandon a worthy ally? She stepped closer, looking down at Kane. You proved humanity's strength to me. Now, we prove ours to you. She raised a communicator and spoke in the Scifi tongue. A moment later, the station's massive hangar doors opened, revealing dozens of Scifi warships powering up their engines. Our fleet stands with you, Captain. Kane gave a small nod. Good. The war had just begun. The first battle. Only a few hours later, the Sentinel and a small Scifi fleet arrived at the ruins of the Terran colony. The destruction was worse up close. Kane stared at the lifeless remains of what had once been a thriving human settlement. Then suddenly, an alert sounded. Incoming enemy ships. Kane turned sharply as a Zyric war fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Their dark, insect-like vessels spread out, surrounding the wreckage of the colony. A deep, buzzing voice echoed through the comms. You should not have come, human. Kane stepped forward. And you should have finished the job. The Zyric ships opened fire. The battle had begun. Fighting back. Explosions ripped through space as the Scifi and Terran ships returned fire. Kane stood firm on the bridge of the Sentinel, barking orders as his crew maneuvered through the chaos. The Zyric warships were fast, their sharp, claw-like weapons tearing through the void. But Kane had fought them before. Target their engines, Kane commanded. Slow them down. The Sentinel's cannons fired, striking the Zyric cruiser and sending it spinning out of control. Zelva's flagship moved alongside them, her voice ringing through the comms. You fight well, Kane. Let's see how you handle this. A squad of Scifi assault ships rushed forward, crashing through enemy lines with terrifying speed. Their weapons glowed, unleashing bursts of golden plasma that ripped through Zyric hulls. The battle was turning in their favor, a dark revelation. Then, suddenly, something changed. One of the Scifi ships vanished, not destroyed, not hit, just gone. Kane's eyes narrowed. What was that? Another ship disappeared, then another. A strange black mist spread through space, swallowing vessels without a sound. And then a new ship appeared. It was massive, larger than anything Kane had ever seen. Not Zyric, not Vakari, not Breltec. Something else. The Zyric fleet immediately stopped attacking. They were afraid. Zelva's voice was filled with shock. What? What is that? The answer came in the form of a deep, echoing signal that filled every ship's communication systems. We have watched long enough. The galaxy belongs to us. All will kneel. Kane felt a chill run down his spine. This war wasn't just about humanity anymore. Something far worse had just arrived. And it was only the beginning. A deep silence filled the battlefield. The massive unknown ship loomed in the darkness of space, its structure unlike anything Kane had ever seen. It was neither sleek nor mechanical. It was alive. Pulsing veins of dark energy ran along its hull, and its presence sent a chill through every captain and soldier. Then the voice returned. We have watched long enough. The galaxy belongs to us. All will kneel. The Zyrek, once so confident, suddenly fled. Their warships turned and vanished into hyperspace without a fight. Zelva growled. Cowards. But Kane was more focused on the thing in front of him. Whatever this is, he said, it scared them. He turned to his crew. We need answers. The Sentinel scanners ran a deep scan of the new arrival. The results sent a shock through the room. Ambassador Carson whispered, that ship, it's not new. It's ancient. The readings showed that the ship's material was millions of years old, far older than any known civilization. And its energy signature, completely alien. Sir, the sensor officer called. It's charging something. Kane didn't wait. All ships, evasive maneuvers. A black pulse shot out from the massive vessel. It spread like a wave, swallowing everything in its path. One Scifi ship wasn't fast enough. The moment the wave touched it, it simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris, just gone. Zelva cursed in her own language. That thing is death itself. Kane gritted his teeth. Then let's make sure it doesn't leave this place alive. The last battle begins. The Terran and Scifi fleets opened fire. Plasma, missiles, railgun slugs, everything they had. The enemy ship took the hits and did not even slow down. Then it struck back. Dark tendrils of energy lashed out, grabbing ships like prey. A Scifi cruiser was pulled into the darkness, vanishing in an instant. Kane slammed his fist against the control panel. We can't fight it like this. Carson turned to him. Then how do we win? Kane took a deep breath. Every enemy has a weakness. He turned to the science officer. Give me a full breakdown of that ship. I need to know what's keeping it alive. The officer worked fast. Then he found something. Sir, the core of that thing. It's generating massive gravitational fields. If we disrupt it, we might be able to destroy it. Kane's mind raced. How much firepower would we need? The officer hesitated. More than we have. Silence. Then Zelva stepped forward. I have an idea. A desperate plan. Zelva pointed to her flagship, a massive Scifi dreadnought. My ship carries enough antimatter warheads to level a planet. Kane's eyes widened. That would be enough. She nodded. But we need to get close. Kane knew what that meant. That's a suicide mission. Zelva bared her teeth in a fierce grin. A warrior's death. Kane wasn't about to let that happen. Not if we cover you. He turned to his fleet. All ships form a wall. We are pushing that dreadnought straight to the target. A moment later, the plan was set in motion. The Terran and Scifi fleets charge, drawing the creature's attacks, while Zelva's flagship raced forward. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, trying to stop them. Ships vanished one by one. But they kept going. The Sentinel took heavy damage, but Kane didn't slow down. Almost there. Zelva's voice rang through the comms. Then, a tendril grabbed her ship. A captain's choice. Kane acted without thinking. He turned the Sentinel and rammed into the tendril with full force. The impact sent a shock through the ship. Alarms blared. Sparks flew. The crew shouted in alarm. Captain, we can't take much more. Kane didn't care. Keep going, he roared. And it worked. The tendril loosened, and Zelvid's ship broke free. "Captain Kane," she said, her voice softer now. "Thank you." Then her ship detonated. The antimatter warheads exploded, sending a blinding flash of light through space. The shockwave ripped through the enemy vessel, tearing it apart at the core. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, the creature was gone. The battlefield was silent. The war was over. Victory and a new future. On board the damaged Sentinel, the crew sat in stunned silence. Carson finally spoke. "We did it." Kane exhaled. "No, she did it." Zelve was gone, but her sacrifice had saved them all. As the surviving ships regrouped, a message was sent across the stars. Humanity and the Exilari had fought together. They had won, and the galaxy would never forget. Kane looked out into space, knowing this was just the beginning. Because if that thing was real, what else was waiting in the darkness?